Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us tonight for our latest episode in the Talk With series here at ACU. So tonight we're running our Talk With Exercise Scientists, High Performance Sport and Physiotherapist session. My name's Barney Ray. I'm part of the ACU Future Students team. I myself am based up in Brisbane, but this webinar we're running on a national perspective. So you will have people talking to you from all different campuses and all different parts of Australia tonight. I will let you know that the Q&A functionality is live tonight. So if you're familiar with Zoom, you should have a Q&A function where you can pop all your questions in for our panelists, who I'll introduce shortly. And I can already see that there's a few coming in. So it's great to know that we've got some interest in hearing exactly what it's like to work in this field and what it's like to study at ACU in these fields as well. If you do have any questions tonight and we're unable to get there and to get through them, please just jump onto the ACU website and submit it through our Ask ACU links, and we'll make sure that we pop a link in the chat at the end, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. In these last few sessions, we have had a lot of questions come through, so we apologise in advance if we don't quite get to yours tonight. So to begin, in recognising Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's spiritual and cultural connection to country, and in continuing ACU's commitment to reconciliation, I would like to commence this webinar by acknowledging the First Peoples and the traditional owners and custodians of the country where ACU campuses are located. We respectfully acknowledge our elders past and present, and remember that they have passed on their wisdom to us in various ways. Let us hold this in trust as we work and serve our communities. So before we jump in and hear from our panelists tonight, a little bit about the different subject areas and how you can study them at ACU. So I guess it's worth starting off first of all with some definitions. What exactly is exercise science, high performance sport and physiotherapy? These are the definitions that we've used, and we might hear from our panelists on what their take is. But generally speaking, exercise science and scientists improve the health, performance and participation of individuals, teams and athletes through exercise programming and delivery, athlete training and health advice. Kind of taking that to a different level, high performance sport is really about the conditioning of the athlete. So the aim of optimizing the individual and the team performance and keeping on top of their game as suggested by the naming of it. We've also got physiotherapy, probably the one that most of the guests tonight are most familiar with. You might have used a physio in your own life. So physiotherapists prevent injury and disability in others, as well as rehabilitate those who are already injured. So worth keeping that in mind as we go through tonight's session. Now, in terms of studying at ACU, these are our undergraduate courses in the areas. I won't go through exactly which campuses they're all available at, but you can see there that we have a Bachelor of Exercise and Sports Science. We also have an Exercise and Sports Science with Nutrition Science double degree, Exercise and Sports Science Psychological Science double degree, Exercise Science and Business Administration, Exercise Science and Applied Public Health, Exercise Science and Education Secondary, so a high school teacher, a Bachelor of High Performance Sport and a Bachelor of Physiotherapy. And you can see with the little asterisk there, you can also complete an honours year in High Performance Sport and Exercise and Sports Science. You'll also see with all the other stars there that they're not available at all of our campuses. So depending on where you're tuning in from tonight, there might be a campus close to you that offers the course you're interested in, or you might be interested in traveling to another campus if there's a particular course that you want to undertake. Once you've done your undergraduate degree, you might be interested in taking on some postgraduate courses or some postgraduate study, which some of our panelists have tonight as well. So we offer a number of different postgraduate courses in the forms of graduate certificates, graduate diplomas, as well as masters. And you can see here that they're all taught online. So we don't actually teach these on campus at the moment. They're all online, and right down the bottom, there is also the PhD option as well. So again, we'll hear from our panelists how they found their postgraduate experience. In terms of pathways, if you're sitting there and you're really interested in these fields, but you're not quite sure that you'll meet the entry requirements or that you've done the right amount of study to help get you into your undergraduate degree, we do have a pathway option, which is the Diploma in Exercise Science. This is taught at our Blacktown, Brisbane and Melbourne campuses. It's a one-year program and it's a really important stepping stone to achieving your career and study goals. So just because if you're in high school and you didn't quite get the ATAR, or there's subjects you didn't do, or maybe you're out of high school and you haven't studied in a while, this is a really great option to help you get to where you'd like to go without the traditional kind of high school certificate. pathway. So students who undertake this course, you potentially will gain credit for up to a year of study in some of our other degrees. So it may not even take longer than going through the traditional bachelor's program. Or there might be some other degrees as well that you can gain entry into. It's also a standalone qualification on its own. So you might just decide that once you complete the diploma in exercise science, you don't need to go on to another degree. You're happy with that, and you can move into the workforce and look at different roles and different experiences using that diploma. All right, enough about us and enough about what you can study and what tonight's topics are. Tonight is all about hearing from some of our current students and some of those who have already been through the university and are now out there working in the workforce. So I might ask all of our lovely panelists to turn their cameras on, and we'll quickly run through and introduce everyone. So we've got, in our current students, we've got Pete Van Vakis. He's a Bachelor of Exercise and Sports Science student at our Melbourne campus. We have Julia Ruckett doing a Bachelor of Physiotherapy at our Ballarat campus, so in regional Victoria. We have Rhiannon Minute, who is a Master of Clinical Exercise Physiology student at our Strathfield campus. And the alumni, so those who have been through before, we have Liam, Amy Lee, and Josh. So Liam is an accredited exercise physiologist with Summit Health and Fitness, and you can see he did a bachelor's with us as well as a master. Amy Lee is currently working for Cricket New South Wales with the Sydney Thunder Women's Big Bash League team, so very keen to hear how that's going. And we've also got Josh, who is a physiotherapist with New South Wales Rugby League, as well as the principal physiotherapist with the club physio. And he did a bachelor with us a couple of years ago now. So first of all, thank you all panelists. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'll just get rid of our little PowerPoint here so that we can just focus on our panelists for tonight. All right, so first things first, we might hear from our current students. So I'll jump to you first, Julia. You're doing physio, you're studying at our Ballarat campus. Can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, how you're finding physio, why you chose it, and why did you choose to do it at ACU?
Yeah, so I am currently in my third year of the Bachelor of Physiotherapy. Sort of how I got into physio was sort of like most people. I played a lot of sport growing up, had a lot of injuries, and spent sort of a fair bit of time at the physio. And so that's sort of how I got exposure to sort of the world of physiotherapy and sort of that how they work in private practice and both in a hospital setting. And I think having that flexibility of, that you can go and work in community health as well as, working in that hospital setting, I thought that was really appealing because you're not locked into one area. You can always sort of swap and change. And I think sort of a certain part of my degree that I'm really enjoying is sort of the women's health aspect. So for me personally, that's sort of where I would like to end up, which is sort of quite unusual. So sort of a day, normal typical day is that I sort of spend around 25 hours on campus. So I'm usually there quite a lot. And it's always doing something hands-on in a practical setting and learning new things and picking one of your lecturers' brains about case studies. So it's a really hands-on practical degree, which is something that I personally like.
Awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear. Our next current student, Pete, Exercise and Sports Science in Melbourne. Tell us a little bit about why you chose your course and why you chose ACU.
Awesome. First of all, good afternoon and good evening to everyone tuning in. Thank you for tuning in, first of all. So studying in my third year of Exercise and Sports Science down here in the Melbourne campus. Now, this is a degree I've absolutely loved and something I've been wanting to do for years, even before I started here at ACU. So I've always been involved with sport all throughout my life. Had a couple of little injury niggles myself growing up, and also just being exposed to different methods of training, rehabilitation, and recovery. So wanting to go into exercise science, an area I came across, and ACU was just amazing with the amount of connections I had within the industry, all the experience I was able to attain through a placement, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point later this evening. But just being exposed to different ways of training, the way we can approach human movement and health and how we can improve performance, whether that's in a sporting context or a general population clinical context, has been something I've absolutely loved in the last 3 years. And since we've just finished our last week of class this week, look forward to getting hands dirty in the industry quite soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. Good to hear your enthusiasm's still there after 3 years. It's good to know. Our other current students, so those two students were undergraduate students. Our other current student is Rhiannon. She's doing a master's at the moment, but has also done her undergraduate at ACU. So Rhiannon, do you want to tell us a little bit about your course and your journey to where you are now?
Sure. So I did, obviously you just said I did my bachelor's degree my 3 years. I finished that 2 years ago, so at the start of 2020, and I decided to take a bit of a break off. Luckily I did, because COVID hit. And then I kind of just wanted to work in the field, see where I was at, see what I wanted to do. So I had some friends doing the EP degree. Yes, Liam. Liam's one a good friend of mine. So he was doing it, a couple of other friends were doing it, and I would just hear what they were doing in class. And I had an interest in doing it, but I just wasn't 100% sure before wanting to start. And then I kind of got to the point where I was working that I really wanted to do rehab, but I wanted to focus more on the exercise part and using exercise as medicine. Essentially, that's what an EP does, and I'm sure Liam will go into that a bit more. I really enjoyed that, and I loved ACU. For my undergrad, I knew some of the lecturers that would be teaching masters. I'd heard good things from my other friends, and I just knew overall I'd get the best experience at ACU. The lectures are great. The course itself, I've heard great things, and then getting job prospects from ACU, I just heard it's one of the better unis to be able to get a job, and that's essentially what you want when you go to uni. You want to be able to get a job. So essentially that's really it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Rhiannon. And that's a great segue, actually, because when we're talking about jobs, we probably need to chat to someone who is now out in the workforce. So there are 3 alumni who we've got tonight. So those who have gone through, we might stay in the exercise physiology kind of field and go with you, Liam, first. So welcome tonight, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what you've been doing since you left ACU.
Hey, everyone. So Rhiannon really kind of put it really well. I actually did the exact same little segue from sports science to exercise physiology through a good friend of mine, who I live up the street from. And, he was doing sports science in his final year, so in 3rd year, when I'd started the degree, and we met, and, he was telling me all about exercise physiology and he wants to get into it. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And then as we kind of got through a couple more years, it came to like placement. And I actually ended up doing my placement with an exercise physiologist when I was doing exercise science. And that really opened my eyes to, what else is out there. Like, exercise physiology is like nothing else that I've really encountered before. I've spent a lot of time around physios and things like that, but exercise physiology is just this whole different world of, neurological conditions is probably the biggest expanding point for us, but also long-term injuries, chronic disease, all of those sorts of areas are where we really specialize in. And as Rhiannon said, which is kind of one of our main points we learn at uni, is exercise is medicine for us, and that's our prescription. So that's how it works for us.
Great. Thanks, Liam. Next up, we'll go to Amy Lee. So Amy Lee, you're doing the Master of High Performance Sport, and you also did your bachelor's with us. So tell us exactly how you find high performance sport and what you're currently doing.
So I really enjoyed ours, and I think I was in the 2nd intake of the Masters when it started. It's a little while ago now, but it was all online, and then we had to do a nice little week in Melbourne for an intensive first couple of weeks of the units, and it was great. You get a real sense of where the degree can take you, whereas you got a little bit of a taste in undergrad, and it's okay, once you decide that I wanted to go down the high performance sport route, the Masters was the ideal choice, because it gives you a bit more in depth. You can go into more your exercise science route, or I went mostly strength and conditioning, but now it's kind of like your sports sciences as well. And from there, I got internships, or I did an internship as one of the electives. You get to know your teachers pretty well, especially from undergrad as well, that teach in the Masters. And it's so good, because connections get you so far. And it's come to the point now where a lot of it's who you know, and you get that from this degree. Like, it's small enough that you get to know everybody a little bit more personally, but it's large enough that it still feels like you're in a massive university, which you are. Like, it's got how many campuses now? So it's great. And then I'm currently working as a strength and conditioning coach for Cricket New South Wales. So I work with the Sydney Thunder women's BBL team, and then I also assist with the women's New South Wales team. So I get to do that. I also work in rugby as well, but cricket is my main position. So it's nice. You get a taste for different sports. You get to see how you can implement everything that you learned about it, how much science actually plays into programming and everything, and tracking and monitoring athletes. It's not just about lifting in the gym. Like, it's a big part, but there's a lot more that goes into it, which I'm sure we'll get to later.
Great. And it's great to hear that, I guess, in that professional athletic arena, that those skills that you learn are still really shining through and helps you move into that. So that's really good to hear. And yes, we'll definitely come back to that later. Last but not least, Josh, Bachelor of Physio student, current physiotherapist. Tell us a little bit about why you chose physio and what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people going to the rehab professions have obviously had a bit of a taste of it themselves a lot of the time. There's always some broken bodies that decide that I could do something like this for work. Yeah, currently I'm sort of own my own couple of practices, and I'm still doing a bit of work in sport in different capacities, but I've worked in a few different kind of professional sports. I've done some NBL, AFL, and then bulk of my time has been spent in the NRL, in the professional sort of realm. And I like the sporting world because similar to how we're all doing similar parts of the health and wellness world, we are kind of all come together in the sporting environment. So there's the S&Cs and the physios and nutrition and, rehab EP. We have as that rehab coach in a lot of sports as well for a lot of the longer term guys. And it's a big team. And I think that's a big part of why I liked it. I grew up playing sport, and like a lot of people been involved in a team. And, a traditional physio clinic, you walk in and there's, there can be a whole lot of beds and things like that, but my clinics are set up with strength and conditioning coaches and a team of people, and I think that's a really cool way of bringing everyone in this kind of realm together, which is cool. And I think with ACU we did some subjects all together and some sort of more separate and specialized in what we do, but I think there's a lot of crossover and in this kind of space, and I think that's why I liked working with everyone at uni, and then post uni, again, the connections that you made with placements, and that's how I ended up getting my first jobs and all that kind of stuff as well, was the placements that we did and the people we met along the way.
Yeah, awesome. Placements we will definitely come to. Josh, we might actually stay with you. There's a question that's come through from someone in the audience. I guess it's about the job prospects for physiotherapy. Like, how do you see the projected demand for physios in the future, whether it's in a professional sporting arena or just with a general kind of use for physios?
Yeah, I think physio can be taken so many different ways. And I think, I've fallen into the sporting realm where, yes, there is a lot of jobs, but at the top tier, there isn't. There is only, however many professional leagues in the country. And then as we go down, there's more jobs in a bit of a pyramid. But in the sporting realm, a lot of people came out wanting to be sport physios, and that's, really good. At the top end, there's not heaps of jobs, but physio itself is not just sport, and I think that's a really important part of what it is. Every hospital's got 2 to 3 on every ward. They're in community health, they're in aged care, they're in private practice. There's a huge demand in all different realms, and even with COVID, opened up a telehealth realm of Q&A style physio that a bit different, where you're troubleshooting remotely. I mean, it's not something that I come across heaps in my space, but there is a huge demand for physios. And, with everyone in health, people do jump laterally a lot of the time. Physios end up in the S&C world, and S&Cs end up doing a master's and coming across. And I think the knowledge you gain from any of the degrees that we're sort of chatting about today can move laterally as well as, stay in their own field too, I think. But there is a lot of demand for jobs. I think the dream of working in a professional sporting environment, it takes a lot of grunt work, and the internships and learning along the way is sort of how you end up with those jobs a lot of the time as well. Yeah,
I think that's really good, honest opinions, to be honest, because there is only so many sporting professions in a population of 23 million. So it's good to be realistic about what those prospects are and where you might end up. And it sounds like there's so many different options where you could really end up. Changing tack a little bit now, I want to come back to some of our current students. Pete, I'm looking at you as a exercise and sports science student. If you're talking to, say, someone who isn't currently at university and they're trying to figure out what that life might look like, what does your week kind of look like? How many times are you on campus? Are you doing some classes online? And how does that all kind of look for you in a week?
Absolutely, great question. So obviously each semester, the amount of times you'll be on campus will change depending on what units you are doing and what the requirements are, both online lectures and also classes in person. So I'll use this semester as a perfect example, being a placement year. So in my final semester currently, the way it's working is on a Monday and Friday, they'll be my predominant uni days. So I'll be on campus from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m, completing some class and also one online lecture in that period of time as well. Being a practical based degree as well, obviously it's very hands-on. So anyone looking to do exercise science or any of the other branches here, very, very hands-on studying opportunities right here. And essentially what I'm also doing during my placement is placement 3 times a week. So if I'm not at uni on a Monday and Friday, then on a Tuesday through to a Thursday, you'll find me down at placement. So similar to some of the other people here, I'm looking to go into strength and conditioning. So one of the places I'm doing a placement at is a private practice area in strength and conditioning. We're essentially working with a variety of athletes, both working in elite sports or even just your local sports really. So being able to apply that knowledge and theory you've learned at uni and being able to apply it into the real world is something that ACU's done really well with, and you guys would be well suited to that as well. But that's kind of how you'll find structure both with uni and life as well.
Yeah, great. And I think we're starting to lean into this chat about our placements now, so we might as well just run with it, because I think it's a really important part of what students are looking at and trying to get that hands-on experience. Rhiannon, we might come to you. How many placements have you done across your undergraduate and graduate, and what's kind of been probably the most interesting one or the highlight of the different placements?
Okay, so for my current degree, I go on my main placements next year, because the way the master's work is it's a year and a half, and the first year is essentially you're studying. This semester we had about maybe 30 hours of placement, and we worked in the clinic at uni. We got our own client that we got to work with for 7 weeks. Essentially, you are the EP, you're being mentored by an accredited EP, but you do all the work yourself, you're programming, you're doing the assessments. But our main 3 blocks of placement will be next year. So that's for that one. And then for my undergrad, I ended up doing my whole 140 hours of placement with a sport team. So that was more down the S&C route, but I was essentially given my own team, and I was doing athlete monitoring, S&C, dealing with the whole team myself, and they were a youth team. So whatever comes with a 16-year-old boy, that's what I was dealing with for a whole season. But yeah, I think so far the highlight would be the one I've currently just finishing up in the clinic, because it really makes you understand that's what your day-to-day life is going to be. And I was only working with one client, and there's a lot of work to come with it. So it's kind of opening your eyes to see the level of expectation that comes with being an EP, but also a client that has many different conditions rather than just one. It's a complex case. So that'd probably be my highlight one.
Cool. Sounds very interesting. Very, very interesting. Along that same path, Liam, as an alum, is there anything looking back, like a placement that really kind of opened doors for you, or one that you found maybe even surprised you and wasn't what you were expecting?
Oh, I can assure you there was lots of things I didn't expect on placement. So in sports science, as Rhiannon said, there's 140 hours. I actually did all of mine where I currently work now. And that really opened my eyes to the whole exercise physiology world. But then when I went to placement for masters, it's actually completely different. So the 140 hours for sports science is whenever you want over the whole year. You can do that like over a certain period. So there's plenty of time. Whereas the masters was 15 weeks back to back, and it's 3 different blocks of 5 weeks. So you have, a big setup of 15 weeks straight, literally working full time and trying to do uni at the same time, because you have classes. Well, not many, but there's only one class you have to deal with, but it was full on, to say the least. And I'm the kind of person that will always take on more than they have to. And at one of my placements, I actually was offered like basically what was a full-time role. And I was working with probably 8 to 10 clients a day for 4.5 days a week, and trying to do uni as well. And that was extremely difficult. So you kind of, if you're going into a master's, you have to kind of prepare for, not being able to work for actual money, because it's all, you're working for free. That's what placement is. That was a big curveball, because it was like, oh, what am I going to do about money? But that's okay. if you really want it, it's so worth it. And I did my last placement at a place called the Advanced Rehab Center, which is also known as ARC. And that was some really high level clients with like high level disabilities that were really struggling in life. And they were at really tough points in their life, both physically and emotionally. So it was big eye opener, but it was really nice to kind of have that experience to know what's coming in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on something there, Liam, as well, that we do get asked a lot about, particularly for students coming from high school, around where the placement is paid. And it can always be a bit of a shock when they hear that it's not. I mean, obviously for us, it makes sense, but it's all about getting that experience so that, of course, later on you can get paid for it. And that's the only way to build that experience.
Exactly. And the biggest lesson that I learned at placement, but also I'm trying to teach so many students, because at my work now, I'm the student supervisor. So I see so many students from so many different universities, and realistically, you get out of it what you put in. And seriously, there's a big fluctuation between people that want to be there and people that don't. And I can tell you, if you want to be there, then it shows to the employer as well that, when you finish, they can say, it's as simple as, oh, you've been here, you know how it works. Do you want a job? Like, it's that easy. So it's just a case of, really applying the skills that you learn at uni and giving it a real go.
Yeah, great. And I hope the current students who are on this panel as well are hearing all of that and liking the idea of being handed a job at the end. That sounds really good.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of current students, Julia, we might come to you. When we talk about placements, we talk about the experience you get and all of that kind of thing. Could you give an idea, I guess, of what actually do you have to then present back to the university after placements? Like, it can't all be about the experience, right? Do you have to do reviews on how it went, or complete assignments about your experience as well?
So I actually have not been on placement yet. So the way that I've been a bit COVID affected, so I am down in Victoria, and with all the lockdowns, we have had some sort of changes to the way that my course has been presented. So the plan for my sort of degree is that I'm completing all my 800 hours of placement in my final year. So usually how the degree works is that you get little tasters sort of through first year, second year, and then sort of your major placements is in your final year, so fourth year. So I'm currently in my last academic semester. So I finish content at the end of third year, and then fourth year is really a year for me to do intensive sort of refreshers. And then I have sort of 6 blocks of 5 weeks of placements, which will be sort of your Monday to Friday normal placement. But from what I have heard from the people that have gone before me, there is sort of, you would have your assignments and that you do have competencies that you have to meet. So sort of your placement supervisor will be checking things off just to show that sort of you're able to you're competent in that area of physiotherapy.
Well, it sounds like you're prepared for it and have been waiting a long time for it, Julia. So
I definitely have.
I'm sure you're very keen to see how all of that theory actually gets applied. So good answer, good response, considering you haven't actually been on one just yet. Amy Lee, a question from the audience specifically for yourself. What type of organizations, or what organizations specifically did you do your placements and internships through? And I guess, is there any that you would recommend particularly?
So for the placements that we did in undergrad was actually through the university itself. They gave us a few options, and I can't actually remember the name of them now, but we went through the ones that I did. We went through to junior schools, so like primary schools, and we hosted a lot of and taught them how to play different sports. So it was mostly after school care, so a bunch of kids, maybe like up to 40 kids. It's about 2 of us, and we did that. Another one was my placement that I chose myself, which was a local gym that I used to go to with an exercise physiologist, and we got to train clients throughout, and we did that for a big chunk of our placement too. And then in the masters, I did an elective for an internship, which I managed to get with one of my lecturers at the time, who ran his own business, and it was called the Performance Intelligence Agency. Sounds like FBI, but so we ended up working in netball and soccer at the time. So it was when GWS netball was just coming up. So it wasn't the TV level, but at the level below, and a couple of juniors as well. So we managed to do all that, and we did all their court-based S&C. We didn't have any gyms, so we had a couple of med balls, the benches that were there, and stuff like that. So we ran a lot of conditioning and just mostly body weight or banded or netball, like some netball specific movements that we tried to do with our med balls and stuff. So they were the 3 ones that I did, and they were all really good. And you get a very different taste of each route the industry can take you. So LTAD, so like your younger developing athletes, is growing for S&C, like private schools, after school care. It is a huge market, and we're seeing the progressions for all the kids coming out of school now, like how athletically developed they are. And then you can go the different route. You can go into the gym, you can be a personal trainer, you can be an EP, you can do things like that as well. You can see how it works in a gym space. And then if you're looking for team sport, not as shiny without a gym, but all the stuff that makes you a bit more creative, because you have to think of your feet a little bit more, work with what you've got. Most of the time, it's not a whole lot of stuff, unless you can get into an organization that has that facility there. Yeah, hope that answered it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. Josh, a question that's come through from the audience, I guess trying to bust some myths about physio. How physically intensive is being a physiotherapist?
I think it varies on which kind of field you go into. I mean, the sporting field can be, relatively physical. And again, depending on the sport, if you're working in rugby league, there's some pretty big bodies and you got to work a bit harder to get some of them moving. But again, in the hospital, you're doing a lot of lifting, a lot of assisting in moving patients. That can be, up to 200 plus kilos. Sometimes we had, when I was doing some of my practice, that was pretty bit that I wasn't ever ready for when I thought I knew everything from uni. But yeah, it can be pretty physically demanding. But I think my rule of thumb is if you're in the rehab setting, knowing how to do things and understanding and being physically active yourself is a really big beneficial part of it. Understanding how things should feel, how they, then you can explain them better to people and all that kind of stuff. So you end up, pretty physically active in your normal day, showing people how to do things. And, like I said, my clinics are based largely in gym-based settings. So a lot of the time rehab is done in those settings too. So showing people how to do things in the gym all day can be relatively strenuous.
Yeah, I can only imagine. While we've got you, Josh, we're talking about placements and that kind of thing. Is there any that really stands out to you in your time at ACU?
I loved how varied my placements were. I think I got a really good coverage of everything that physio can be. I think we had to do the six placements, as Julia was saying. Let's see if I can rattle them all off the top of my head. So I did a sim placement at uni. So it was 5 weeks with a big sim block, where it was all case studies and things like that. But it was still basically a full day in the uni setting there. Then I did acute cardiorespiratory. So I was in one of the major teaching hospitals in Sydney, doing cardiorespiratory stuff. So, post-op, heart and lung surgeries, all that kind of stuff. Then went into outpatients in hospital. So did some hands, fracture clinic. It was in a largely non-English speaking area too. So that's where with some translators, and again, another curveball that does happen on placements that you got to kind of, catch and work with. Then I went into acute neuro. So we were assessing people day of stroke, day post stroke, helping, we're getting taught how to look at brain scans and link them all to the acute presentation of strokes. Then I went into rheumatology. So that was one of the elective placements. So I got put into a rheumatology one, and that had some hydro in it, that had some wards, that had some gym-based therapies, and a lot of rheumatic and like autoimmune based issues that we were largely exercise-based sort of therapies there. And then I went into a sporting private practice. So I really covered all corners of what the degree can sort of, or every way it can take you. And I found ones that I loved that I thought I wouldn't, and didn't enjoy ones that I thought I would. But it gave me a really good understanding of which way I wanted to take it, and sort of nudged me in the direction I ended up going.
Yeah, and I mean, even the fact that you remember all of them at this point obviously means that they stood out. So well done
Oh,
for
I had some
rattling
good
them off.
stories, don't worry.
Rattling them off at the
Absolutely.
drop of a hat. Well done. Pete, I've got a question for you about your placements and that kind of stuff, but one has just come through for Julia first, actually. So Julia, even though you're yet to do your placements, which we spoke about, do you already have an idea of what you're hoping to do after graduation? Is there a particular type of, I guess, physio or a particular field that really interests you at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So throughout your degree, you get sort of tasters in sort of all the areas of physio. So you have that musk side, cardiorespiratory, and so on. I'm probably not your stereotypical physio student. Sort of sports physio is not really my interest. So ideally, I am sort of more hospital based. So for me, my goal is that to work in sort of that acute women's health sort of setting. So working sort of with women who are pregnant or have had babies recently. And there's a lot of sort of physio side that you can do in terms of pelvic floor, sort of incontinence and those sort of side. Yeah, so that's sort of my goal, which is sort of quite niche, but I think it's sort of a really rewarding career and it's something different. So yeah, that's sort of my plan at the moment, but sort of I have really enjoyed my neuro units as well. And so outside of uni, I've had sort of experiences working at a sort of neuro rehab facility. So a lot of people who have had traumatic brain injuries and strokes. So I've sort of really enjoyed that side as well. So sort of placement's the big decider of sort of where I end up. But yeah, it's sort of physio, you can sort of, there's so much flexibility in terms of where you can study and what you can do.
No pressure on the 800 hours still to come then, Julia.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will find your spot. Absolutely. Pete, placements. A question has come through around how you find them. Is there support at the university that helps you find them? And I think we've heard a little bit about some of the links that ACU has. In your experience, how did you actually find the placements? Like go out and look for them?
Absolutely. I found them quite easy, especially navigating with your course coordinator and finding a placement, whether that's a placement the university has on offer for you to apply for, or they're more than happy for you to seek out a placement yourself. Obviously, if that all meets the requirements that are required for your qualifications and your certifications by the end of the degree. So both of my placements I completed, one last semester and one this semester, but both actually ones that I had found myself. And I've absolutely loved both of them. So the placement I did last semester is similar to where Amy Lee was saying, an area that's kind of developing is that LTAD, so that long-term athlete development. So working with a lot of youth athletes or clients and kind of building them up as they develop through their ages. So working that in a school environment, absolutely loved it. Supported by so many great mentors and supervisors and fellow interns. So being able to apply your knowledge there and kind of navigate your way around, find if this is an area you really want to go into, was absolutely awesome. And there's always support from the university. So if you're loving it, you let your people know. If you're not, well, you let your course coordinator know and they can kind of help you out from there. But definitely through these placements and other internships I've completed outside the official placement hours as well, definitely solidified an area that I want to go into. But yeah, with exercise science and anything like that, pretty much it's such a great broad degree that you can really kind of find your foot and kind of figure out what exactly you want to go down, but highly recommended.
Great. Good to know that support's there and it's not too daunting for everyone to try and find it themselves, I guess, so that there is, some opportunities there to have your hand held a little. Speaking of support services, Rhiannon, I'm coming to you as someone who's kind of been at ACU for a couple of years now, having done your undergraduate and postgraduate. Whether you've used them yourself or not, can you talk us through some of the support services that the university has and then how that can help? It doesn't have to be in your field specifically, but just as a university and how that can help students.
Sure. So I don't think I've used them myself, but I know that at each campus, you've got the student advocacy services, so they can help with referencing, because once you get started at uni, there's this big thing about referencing. So that's something that a lot of people might struggle with in their first year. So that's a big thing that can help. I think just even jumping into the university, there's also counselling as well that some students might need across any part of the degree. And then also just your lecturers and your tutors as well. They're always there to pick their brain if you need help with assessments or some clarification about the lectures or some like content overall. I remember this one lecture I went to, it was biomechanics. I sat there for 2 hours and my lecturer said one thing, it stumped me and I couldn't listen for the next hour. I kept writing notes. I went to my class the next day and I just went up to him and I said, please help me. I don't understand. Within 10 minutes, I understood a whole 2-hour lecture. So picking the brains of your lecturers, because at ACU, there are some really, really good lecturers that I found that are always willing to help. So that's one really big service. But yeah, I think the student advocacy, but maybe someone else can answer it if they've used it as well, but that's as much as I can remember. So
I'm just going to jump in quickly.
Go for it.
So one of my sort of roles at university, I'm also in Ask ACU. So I'm in the current students department of Ask ACU. So sort of future students and current students. And there's so many support services that sort of the university have to offer. And I'd say 90% of students don't know it's there unless you ask. So, you know, if you ever feel that you're struggling or you need assistance, there's always people there to help you. It's just a matter of sort of tracking down the right person and sort of going through that avenue. But there's so many sort of opportunity and services to offer for all students and prospective students as well. So, you know, it's all about making the most of the resources there while you're at university, and mostly they're all free. So that is a big bonus. But there's always people, if you feel like you're struggling, you know, always pop in to Ask ACU and sort of we can sort of point you in the right direction. Or if you're feeling overwhelmed with your studies, there's options that we can go through and sort of navigate how university works for you.
Great answer, Julia. Well done. And Liam, I can see you've got something to add as well.
Yeah, I was going to say Julia's been very nice about that, because 100% I was useless when I started my bachelor's degree. There were so many things that, you know, going from school to university is so different, because, you know, at school you get, you know, 2 weeks before your assignment is due, you get a piece of paper that tells you what you got to do and everything. University is so different, because you get like a course outline that gives you all your assessments, and it's like you're supposed to know that, so that's up to you. And using Ask ACU, I probably used it. They probably hated me. They knew me by my first name in there, because I used to go in there all the time. But it was so handy to have all those resources. And I'm not sure if it's still going, but when I was doing my bachelor's, I think Pete will be able to tell me, but there was a PASS program when I first started. And that was probably the best thing ever. And there was a couple of units in first year that, coming from high school, I was like, what's going on? There's so much information to take in. And the PASS program was basically past students that had completed it, you know, either a couple of years before or, you know, a whole degree before. And they'd come back and they were actually teaching the unit and going over your lecture or tutor or like the notes that you've got. And they would help you to understand, just like Rhiannon explained with like the lecturer. And I'm pretty sure that was Raoul, but anyway. So having access to the PASS program was the best thing ever as a student. But Ask ACU, as Julia said, they were so helpful with everything.
Yeah, good to jump. Well, thanks for jumping in for that, Liam, because I think it's a really good point to make. Amy Lee, I've got a question for you as well. But Pete, do you want to expand on PASS if you're comfortable in terms of what it stands for and how it kind of works, if you're aware of that?
Absolutely. So Liam pretty much nailed it on the head in regards to what PASS is and how it kind of works. So I only ever got a chance to use PASS in the first year, because then obviously COVID hit and we didn't get a chance to utilize that too much online. But obviously now that we're back in person in most places, definitely we can make the most of PASS. So I used it especially my first semester, and I'll tell you, it helps a ton, especially when you do come across some content in a lecture that you're kind of like, I've got no idea what this means, or I'm not really processing it. It's just a kind of good means to kind of debrief, go over some extra little tasks, and just find different ways in which you can kind of absorb the information and kind of apply it in a couple of different ways. But PASS was really good, and there was always quite some good turnout numbers in that sense as well. So if you guys ever come across anything with PASS and you feel like it's something to utilize, definitely can recommend that. Yeah, it was awesome to use.
Yeah, great. And a great way to meet people at university as well, which is also a really important part of the whole experience. Amy Lee, a question that's come through. What would you say, I guess, has surprised you about the industry that you've moved into? And then kind of along those same lines, what would you say is the most rewarding part and what's the most challenging part of the job?
So one of the most surprising parts would be that it is to work in sport, it is incredibly competitive. And I thought that my degree alone, like graduating, I could walk into a job. That is not the case. It is a lot of, you have to start from the bottom and kind of like pay your dues a little bit. But when I graduated, which was quite a little while ago, there weren't as many opportunities as there are now. So like I said before, the LTAD space in high schools is massive. I don't think I knew any schools that had that when I went to school, and now it's all your private schools, or your semi-private schools, independent schools, like everyone's got it. So there's a whole lot of opportunities to get any kind of internship. We've had interns when I worked in schools that are like current students at ACU or like other universities. They get a taste for it, and like someone else said earlier, like it's an in for a job when you graduate. So you get the experience from once you feel like that space isn't for you and you can go on to something else. You've got some coaching experience up your sleeve. And that's a big thing, because I found coaching in a gym, we didn't really kind of touch on it. Like we did a little bit. There was 1 or 2 units in my undergrad that we did, and it was more like a weightlifting class. So it's great, because that's a huge part in, especially in elite and up and coming sport now, to everybody Olympic lifts. So it was great to have a base of that. But it wasn't until I started doing it myself and I was around some other coaches, because it can be taught a million different ways, that you actually realize, oh, okay, I need to spend a lot more time in this area learning these specific things, because not everyone learns it the same. And it becomes like teaching. Every client, and I'm sure some of the other panelists will get the same thing, every client, every student that you have might need to be explained to them or shown in a bunch of different ways. So that was challenging, because I felt like I was speaking another language to some people. They just didn't get it. And having to learn how to become a teacher as well as a coach was quite tough, but very rewarding, because now you work with a bunch of different people and you can kind of connect and get everyone to understand what you're trying to say. And what was your second part of the question?
Oh, what would be, if that was the challenge, what's the most rewarding part? What do you really take away from the job?
So the best part of the job is seeing your athletes, whether they're younger or they're elite, seeing where they started or coming back from an injury, and then seeing them go out and play their sport. It is the best part. It is so fun to watch them go out there, and you've seen them work through the injury or the rehab, or they've come in and can barely move because they just couldn't control their body, and then to go out and do these incredible things on the field or the court or whatever space they're in, or sport they're in, to go see them excel. And it is to think that you had a very small part of that, or a large part if you're a physio or a rehab coach or whatever it might be. You saw them at stage 1 and now they're all the way up here. And it's the best job. And it doesn't feel like work. It's something that you don't have to, if you really love it, it doesn't feel like getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym, to watch some people lift some weights. Like, it doesn't feel like work, because you get to go on the weekends and watch them play. And then like the master's degree sets you up for it. Like, it's the best job.
I think we can all hear it in your voice, Amy, how excited you get about it. So you're a great advocate for the program, and how rewarding to see that tangible kind of, difference that you can make on your athletes. So that sounds fantastic. We've got about 2 minutes left. So I just wanted to do a quick whip around. I would love to know what one bit of advice, this classic age-old one to finish off, what one bit of advice would you give to someone who's looking at doing your course or your profession specifically? What was something that you wish you knew, I guess, right at the start? And we might go with Rhiannon to start.
Okay. Oh, damn. So I think I knew just from people that I knew that had already done it. I think I knew majority of going into it, but I think just the course load and the expectation, because it wasn't a bachelor's, it was a master's. So the expectation level is much higher and the course load is greater, and the expectation to be able to handle it all, as well as like you still need to work, because people that going into masters, they're a bit older, so they already have jobs and you're earning a certain amount of money, and then all of a sudden you need to cut all that back because you need to be able to attend classes. You need to be able to do extra study because just going to class is not enough. So I think just understanding that part when you go into it will help you later on, because that's something that you just need to understand. So I think that's something, but yeah.
Great advice. And I think that balance, right? I mean, whether you're an undergraduate or a postgraduate student, trying to find that balance between your life and university, so critical and really a key to your success as a person as well as a student. We'll go to our other two current students. Pete, one bit of advice for someone who's looking at going into exercise and sports science?
My bit of advice is, if you've kind of got obviously a passion for sports or just anything like that, or exercise in general, start researching early. That's my biggest thing, because you don't want to get to a point at the end where it's kind of you're so overwhelmed with so many different pathways. Just research early, kind of get a gauge for the kind of things you're interested in. There's people you've come across in the industry that you might want to pick their brains about early. Definitely reach out. It's something that I had done as well. In the past, it was kind of a good means for me to kind of get myself set up, get an idea of where I kind of wanted to go career-wise, and it kind of helps you navigate your way throughout your degree as well. So you kind of start to specifically work on some areas that you might want to improve on, as Amy Lee said as well, and kind of just go on from there. So I recommend doing your research early and reaching out to people, because yeah, networks, very important, very important.
Great advice, Pete. Great advice. Julia, one bit of advice for someone looking?
Mine's going to be a little bit of a daggy one, to be honest. So probably my advice, I probably learnt the harder way. So I'm not from Ballarat myself. I'm from Melbourne. So I relocated for the degree. And I think if I sort of could give myself advice back, is use sort of the support networks and the people around you. I sort of made a study group when I was in first semester with anatomy, and anatomy was a bit of a killer. So I sort of had people in my class and sort of were like, hey, do we want to sort of catch up once a week and sort of go through our anatomy? And I still have that study group even in my third year, and we still do once a week catch-ups where we sort of quiz each other on sort of the theory, and we get in all the prac labs and we're all working on each other and asking us questions. And also just use your lecturers as well, like they're there to help you. And, be that person that's a frequent flyer at your lecturer's office, always asking those questions. So I think, sometimes with university, you have to be a little bit more proactive than in high school, but there's so many people that want you to succeed and do well. And so it's all about sort of, I know for me personally, sometimes I can be a little bit shy, but, put yourself out there and sort of, it might be a little bit uncomfortable the first time, but sort of once you do it once, you sort of get used to it. And I think, just use sort of the people around you and your lecturers and sort of your sessionals and your tutors. Use your university time to sort of actually learn as much as you can and pick people's brains.
Good advice. All solid advice. Our alumni, Liam, we'll start with you. Someone who wants to move into your field, what would you say? I think you're on mute, mate. That's all right.
Got me.
Right at the end.
Still did this through uni as well. Definitely can agree so much with everything that the current students have just said. Like, all of those things are so important. I actually still have like really good friendships with all of my study group that Julia mentioned, and we still catch up outside of uni. Like, it's so good to make friends like that. They're friends for life. But from my point of view, I would say the hard thing to learn in my world is you can't always help everyone. And I'd say that the toughest thing is like the emotional toll at times. Like, you have to sometimes be able to detach yourself and, really get a balance with your own life as well as work, because, you see people with so many chronic disabilities that are incurable and we can't do anything about. But we're trying to help them, live longer or just have a better quality of life. And, it's not the end of the world if someone does end up going downhill. Like, there's not much we can do about it, but the rewarding aspect of, someone being able to brush their teeth again, like seriously, that sort of thing, or just take 2 steps walking, it's so rewarding and it's so worth it, because, coming around into, the real world, like, those are the things that you see every day in my world. That's what I see every day. So definitely be prepared to see some tough things, but that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's real. It's real.
Yeah.
Amy Lee, piece of advice.
So for my area, I find it experiences everything. And walking out of university alone with no experience, it's not going to cut it. If you want to work in elite sport, it is highly competitive and full-time jobs are few and far between. So you need to give yourself the best edge to stand out amongst every other applicant. So for me, I went overseas and worked as a coach. And that's my area that stands out on a piece of paper, a resume back in Australia. If you need any experience, jump at any coaching opportunity you can. If you want to be a coach, look overseas, look in niche sports, just anything you can. Like, be prepared to possibly work for free for quite a while. And that's okay, because it's going to pay off in the long run. Just keep at it, because the sport area is ever evolving. So something will come up if you keep at it.
Great advice from someone who's been there before. So, well, that's yeah, great words, Amy Lee. And Josh, very last, I know you've been sitting there for a while, nice and quiet. You've really been mulling it over. What wisdom can you impart on someone thinking about being a physio?
I'd say similar to Amy Lee in a lot of ways. I'd say take your opportunities, ask questions, and if anything does arise, I'm a big advocate in just saying yes and see where it takes you. Building the relationships, and they're the people that offer you jobs at the end of all those things. But I think building the relationships and learning from a variety of people, and sometimes doing things you don't feel like are directly where you want to be at the end of the road, but learning and picking up experiences along the way. I think the things you learn that you don't realize you will learn, they're not really palpable on paper and measurable in uni and all those kind of things, but being malleable in situations and being uncomfortable and learning how to navigate those situations, I think is really, really important. And as Amy was saying, in the sporting world and a few different things like that, you're on the fly and you're thinking, things don't always look like they're going to run perfectly, but using your toolkit that you learn from experience and how to navigate those more difficult times, it comes from being uncomfortable and figuring them out and getting them wrong and learning from the mistakes as well.
Great. Again, really real advice. I think that's a great way for us to finish. Before we finish, can I thank everyone, Liam, Pete, Julia, Josh, Amy Lee, and Rhiannon. Thank you very much for giving up your time. It's fantastic to hear how current students are going, but also how those who are now out in the workplace and how they're progressing after their time at ACU. So we really appreciate it and wish you all the best for your future studies and future work endeavours. And for those who have tuned in, thanks for hanging around for the hour and hearing a little bit more about tonight's topics. If there were some questions that we didn't get to, and I know there were a few there, you can ask our Ask ACU team. There's a few links up there on the screen, or you can get in touch with us via the ACU website. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks to our panelists and enjoy your evenings.